Title: Felix Frankfurter, the forgotten jurist who shaped the Supreme Court introduction. A name lost in time, he stood beside presidents. He shaped legal thought. He influenced policy at the highest levels of American government. Yet today, few Americans even recognize his name. Felix Frankfurter, a Supreme Court justice, a Harvard professor, an immigrant, and a visionary, has become a footnote in the story of American democracy. But his life was anything but minor. It was monumental. This is the story of a man who believed in the Constitution, not just as a legal document, but as a living framework to be interpreted with care, caution, and courage. Early life from Vienna to the Lower East Side. Felix Frankfurter was born on November 15, 1882, in Vienna, Austria. He was just a child when his Jewish family emigrated to the United States, seeking refuge from anti-Semitic oppression and the instability of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They settled in New York City's Lower East Side, a melting pot of languages, cultures, and hardship. Despite the difficult conditions, young Felix excelled in school. His brilliance, discipline, and insatiable curiosity set him apart from his peers. He graduated from City College of New York and later entered Harvard Law School, where his career would truly begin. Harvard and the making of a legal mind at Harvard, Frankfurter stood out immediately. He was articulate, analytical, and fiercely committed to the idea that law was not just a profession, but a calling. He graduated near the top of his class and quickly attracted the attention of some of the most powerful legal minds in the country. By the early 1900s, he was working alongside Henry Stimson, the future Secretary of War, handling complex antitrust and corporate cases for the U.S. Attorney's Office. But Frankfurter's heart was always drawn to the public good, especially the intersection of law and social justice. The progressive advocate, the 1910s and 1920s were transformative decades for America and for Frankfurter. He became deeply involved in the labor movement, advocating for worker protections and fair treatment in industrial America. He criticized judicial overreach that protected corporate interests while ignoring the suffering of working-class families. Frankfurter also played a key role in some of the era's most controversial legal cases, most notably the trial of Sacco and Vanzetti, two Italian immigrants accused of murder in what many believed was a politically motivated prosecution. Frankfurter publicly condemned the trial, calling it a miscarriage of justice. His activism earned him admiration and enemies in equal measure. Harvard professor and mentor to the nation. Returning to Harvard in the 1920s, Frankfurter became more than just a professor. He became a mentor to a generation. His students would go on to become Supreme Court justices, cabinet members, diplomats, and presidents. He taught not just legal doctrines, but the importance of critical thinking, ethical responsibility, and humility in the face of power. Frankfurter's influence extended well beyond the classroom. Through letters, conferences, and private meetings, he shaped American legal culture from the inside. The New Deal and the rise of a legal architect. As the Great Depression gripped the nation, President Franklin D. Roosevelt turned to Felix Frankfurter for guidance. Though he never accepted a formal government position, Frankfurter was the invisible hand behind many of the legal frameworks that defined the New Deal. He advised on appointments, policy language, and legal strategies, always emphasizing constitutional validity and institutional stability. In many ways, he was Roosevelt's legal conscience, challenging, encouraging, and guiding from the sidelines. Appointment to the Supreme Court in 1939. Roosevelt appointed Felix Frankfurter to the Supreme Court of the United States. He became only the third Jewish justice in American history and brought to the bench a profound belief in judicial restraint. To Frankfurter, the role of a judge was not to create policy, but to interpret the law within its constitutional bounds, if the outcome was personally painful. He believed in democracy, not in the courts imposing morality or politics from above. Judicial restraint and rising controversy, Frankfurter's philosophy soon became a point of contention. As other justices, like William O. Douglas and Hugo Black, Kay embraced a more activist role, pushing for civil rights and social justice from the bench. Frankfurter held firm. He dissented in several landmark cases, arguing that change must come from the people through legislatures, not from judges interpreting the Constitution beyond its original meaning. While some hailed him as a guardian of constitutional fidelity, others saw him as a roadblock to progress. Nowhere was this divide more visible than during the early civil rights movement, where Frankfurter's caution was criticized as complicity. Personal struggles and final years on the bench, Frankfurter was not without personal challenges. His health began to decline in the 1950s. He suffered a stroke in 1962 and retired from the court. Later that year, though often portrayed as aloof or cold, Frankfurter was deeply introspective and emotionally invested in the rule of law. He was tormented by the balance between personal morality and judicial discipline, a tension that defined his career. Legacy and the quiet giant Felix Frankfurter died in 1965 at the age of 82. He left behind no best-selling memoirs, no sweeping judicial doctrines, no cult of personality. But he left behind something far more enduring: a generation of students, a body of carefully reasoned opinions, and a vision of democracy grounded in process, restraint, and respect for the Constitution. Today, he is largely forgotten outside legal circles. But to understand American land, the quiet guardians who protected it, one must remember Felix Frankfurter. Closing reflection. History often remembers those who shouted loudest, acted boldly, or changed the rules. But sometimes, the truest patriots are those who whisper caution, who uphold the rules, and who protect democracy by staying within its boundaries. Felix Frankfurter was such a man. Forgotten, perhaps, but never irrelevant. His legacy is not written in headlines, but in footnotes, casebooks, and the hearts of those who believe in the Constitution's quiet, enduring power.